So at the beginning of my career as a DJ, I spent a lot of time playing in Vietnam, and I would go back to Vietnam not for the gigs themselves, but for the street food. One of my favorite dishes were these beautiful broths made of seafood like clams and pipis or mussels that were so fragrant but so light. So today I've got my sake and lemongrass clams just for you. First up, we've got some chilies. I'm just gonna give that 2 slices. I want them to be quite big still. I'm keeping the ends on, nothing wrong with that. A little bit of ginger here, which I'll thinly slice as a garnish on top at the end to reintroduce that ginger flavor to our broth of clams. So it's a nice little julienne, which basically means thin matchsticks. Loving that. That's gonna go right back in here for a little bit later. Now with this ginger, I'm gonna just chop it up, just like the chili, really rough. Give it a quick pound. You kind of just want to smash it so all of the beautiful ginger gets bruised. So this is a very street food dish. We would have it most nights before dinner as a quick kind of snack. But we've got a kilo here and that's enough for a serving. So if you don't want to add anything else to it, don't worry about it, or serve it on top of your favorite rice noodles or egg noodles. I've got some lemongrass as well. I'm just gonna chop a little bit off the ends as a garnish, again, for later. So this dish is so fast that it's all about really getting your ingredients prepped and ready for the plating bit at the end. So that's done, setting him aside. With the leftover lemongrass, I'm just gonna chop and chop, give it a nice bash. Into the mortar and pestle, that goes. Just so it bruises, it breaks the lemongrass itself so that the flavors do infuse in our broth. All right, lemongrass is in, ginger is in, garlic goes in. We're gonna bash that up as well. So we got all those flavors marrying really beautifully in my mortar and pestle. It's not very well bashed. The lemongrass is still fibrous. The garlic has just been bruised lightly. That's ready to cook, but I'm gonna set him aside and get moving on the rest of our prep. So I've got some kaffir lime leaf here, which is absolutely divine for this dish. It incorporates a little bit of freshness right at the end. So we're not actually cooking with it. We're just gonna pour the hot broth over it. So we're just getting rid of that stem in the middle because it's quite fibrous. You kind of don't want that when you're eating it. So with the kaffir, all I'm doing is stacking them, giving it a nice roll, and then a really thin slice. I think the French call this a chiffonade. It's basically just a very, very, very thin slice of the leaves so that they become even thinner than a julienne. Now to get on to actually cooking of the clams. I've got my pan heating up, it's really hot, it's ready for all of our ingredients to go in. So I've got a little bit of water, it'll sizzle a bit, but that's okay. We've got some sake here, which adds a little bit of depth of flavor, a little bit of saltiness, but a lot of sweet, which is what I want. Gorgeous. Now, into that goes all of our pounded up aromats, so the ginger, the garlic, and the lemongrass. We're going to give it a nice stir, let all of those ingredients infuse. Oh, almost forgot the chili. And once that comes to a boil, I'm going to put the clams in. So if you've noticed, I've actually haven't added any salt to this recipe because the salt comes from the salt water inside of the clams, so that seasons the broth. So what I'm smelling now is definitely lemongrass. That's the strongest kind of scent that's coming from this, and also a little bit of that ginger. That's boiling away, it's ready to go. In goes our clams. Now you can change the recipe up and use some pippies if you want, but clams are how we have them, and so that's why I'm using them today. If you want mussels, that's fine as well. Just gonna cover him now and let them all kind of pop open. So as you can see, our clams are popping open at this point. They're looking really beautiful, so I don't want them to overcook. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna pull out all the ones that have popped open and put them straight into my serving bowl. You can see as I'm pulling out the clams that more of them are popping open, and that's exactly kind of what you want. You're gonna spend most of your time now just making sure that dish is perfect by pulling out all of the open bits. This is so happy, so warming. This makes me feel so good, and it definitely reminds me of the streets of Vietnam. That broth is so lovely now. I'm actually gonna turn the heat down a bit because I don't want it to reduce too much. They're all starting to pop open. I know that the theory behind them not opening is that they're bad, and I do tell you to get rid of them, only because I'm worried myself, but from my thoughts, they're not opening because they actually haven't built enough moisture on the inside, so it's not steaming, because usually what I do is I still try and pry them open and eat them, and I've been fine. But for today, just in case, we are getting rid of these guys. Okay, broth is done. I'm gonna turn that off. I'm gonna scatter some of these beautiful fresh ginger over our clams, dust it with some of the lemongrass from earlier, and then have some of the kaffir lime just all over the top, saving half for a little bit later. And I'm just gonna pour this broth directly over those beautiful aromats, kind of cooking them, kind of infusing them, but still leaving them with that fresh flavor. And you guys can go in there as well, because again, more flavor. This smells so good. You really do have to try this at home. I'm getting so excited. More kaffir lime goes on top. Some coriander leaves, just a little nice scattering of them. Let them kind of start to wilt with the heat from the clams. You gotta try this at home. This here is my sake and lemongrass clams, just like I have on the streets of Vietnam.